Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Be Free, Be Fun, Be Fearless. So today I am so honored to introduce a phenomenal lady to you who I am very privileged to call my friend as well, residing in Mexico City, and that is Dr. Millie Diarix. Hi, Millie!
Hi, Rana.
So let me tell you a little bit about Millie, other than the fact that she has a beautiful smile, and as you can see, a halo around her head right now. But yes, no, it's not a video image, it is truly there. So Millie has a fantastic story, and she works very much, she has a clinic, she works in healing people in a very holistic way to do with both the mind, body and spirit, and has a real skill at merging science and what we know about physical side of things and biological side of things with a more spiritual side of things and a mental side of things. And of course, most of you watching this will understand that the mind really does have the power to heal so much. So we will be going into that. But first, Millie has the most phenomenal story that I want her to talk about, because Millie, when I first met her, her byline, her introduction to me was that she got told that, that she had lupus and was going to probably be dead by the end of the week. But as you can see, here she is with a halo around her head, but still in physical form. And so, Millie, tell us a little bit about your story, what you experienced and how you healed yourself from lupus.
Sure, lupus is a very difficult illness to diagnose. So what happened to me is we didn't know what was going on. So I started feeling really sick. I mean, really sick. I started with a fever, and then with my muscles went all away. It ate my muscles, and my skin I was like burnt, as if I had been dipped in hot water. And my joints were completely swollen. I couldn't move a single one. And this happened when my baby was just born. He was 2 months old, my youngest son. And I was completely in bed. I couldn't move at all. And the doctors had no idea what was wrong with me, because I had these symptoms all my life, but never all together. And that's one of the things that happens with lupus. You get all these symptoms together. So by the time I got to a proper doctor that told me what was wrong, I was such in a bad way that I was told I was going to die in a week or maybe 2 days, because it had started attacking my central nervous system. So my back was arched in pain, and I was losing time by then. I was being conscious, unconscious a lot of the time. So that was really scary. But the most scary part was that I didn't have any feelings. I don't know if the center of my brain for feelings or what happened, but I was like flatlined. I was already dead in a way, energetically and emotionally. I was just sitting there completely crumpled in a wheelchair and couldn't do anything for myself, couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. I needed to be carried to the bathroom at this point. And the whole attack lasted for 1 week. It was devastating in a week. So that's why the doctors thought I was going to die, because it had been so devastating in the extent of a week that they didn't think I was going to make it, to be perfectly honest.
So you had all of these symptoms at different periods in your life, but milder, and then you had a 2-month-old son, and then within the space of a week, you ended up being what, normal through to a wheelchair, or just, because I don't get how the doctors, no one knew what was wrong until one doctor suddenly said, oh, you've got lupus. And then of course we should talk about exactly what lupus is, but just explain that to me a bit more.
Well, the thing is that the symptoms are completely different, because if you get something in your joints, you go to see the joint doctor. If you get something in your skin, you go to see the skin doctor, the dermatologist. So with all this specialization, they never join the dots with one thing with the other. And what lupus is, since you're asking, it's a completely systemic breakdown of the immune system. So your immune system goes berserk and starts attacking everything in its path.
So systemic meaning of the body, the physical.
The whole system.
Yeah.
And
so autoimmune meaning that your immune system attacks Your own
You.
body.
Exactly. So it was attacking everything in its sight. And you have no defense against your own defenses. It's like a coup d'etat. If your army attacks your country, you have no more defenses. Those were your defenses. So it's the same thing with the immune system. When your immune system turns against you, there's nothing you can do. Your body is just helpless against it. So that's
what causes it.
Nobody knows. It's just one of those things in which your immune system goes crazy, and it doesn't have that information as what is you and what is not you. So it feels threatened by something and it just goes and attacks everything, whatever's in its path.
So we do believe with autoimmune conditions, because obviously I obviously treat a lot of patients with various other autoimmune conditions as well, even simple things like people getting a rash like psoriasis, or complainers are autoimmune conditions as well, some types of arthritis also. It's about, often it's triggered by stress or some kind of trauma to the body, right? So even the having been pregnant and given birth is a trauma to the body. It's not unusual for people to then, for example, have flare-ups of arthritis after that. So it may have been that, it may have been stress as well, right?
I think it's a combination of everything, which is why I made this method completely holistic, because I was completely stressed out. I had a 3-year-old son and the baby, and I thought I was superwoman and supermom, and I wanted to do absolutely everything. And in Mexico, we get a lot of parties. This was around Christmas time. So there was the parties going on and the babies going on, and the hormones in my body, you know, when you give birth, all the hormones are crazy. And the combination of all those things was the one that caused the flare-up. And that's exactly what you know, if you are a lupus patient or you have any kind of autoimmune disease, it's mental, it's emotional, and it's your body reacting to those. So what I thought was that my body, or your body, if you have something autoimmune, you get an emotion, a strong emotion or a strong thought or something that triggers your body, but your immune system doesn't know that it's an emotion and that that's been triggered by something out there. So it tries to find the culprit in here and starts attacking something, your liver or your kidneys or your skin or your joints, or whatever it thinks is responsible for the attack. Yeah. But the attack is not visible because it's an emotion.
Yeah, and in the case of lupus, it's so devastating because it's not just one part of the body. It can affect every single organ and part of the body. So as it did with you in the space of a week, so you were saying to me, so then you got to the point where you had this disconnect where someone's telling you you're going to be dead in a couple of days, if that. You're in a wheelchair, you have a 2-month-old child, you have a 3-year-old child, and at the same time the emotion is gone too, because you can't quite recognize what he had to say. But of course you're still here with a beautiful smile on your face, so tell us what happened.
Well, eventually I found the will to live again, but at that time I was feeling so badly that when they said you're going to die in a couple of days, the first thought that came into my mind was, oh, thank God there's an end to this. I couldn't do anything. And life like that didn't seem like life at all. Imagine that when I got the diagnosis, actually there, I couldn't go into the light. I was photosensitive even to artificial light, even to a lamp. So I was in a darkened room. Nobody could see me because I was having all these immunosuppressants to suppress the immune system so it wouldn't continue attacking. And also prednisone, which made me swell like a blowfish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was all swollen. My back was all swollen. I looked like a tortoise shell, and my face was that big, and everything, all my body was completely swollen, and I couldn't leave my room. I had no muscles. I couldn't move myself. I couldn't raise an arm. So the first thing that I could actually move was one finger. And I just sat there and concentrated. And this was like months later. Concentrated and said, move, until it finally moved. And that moved, nobody could notice that movement, but I felt the movement. And that was so exciting because I thought maybe I can come back from this. And that hope of being able to come back from this was the one that gave me the idea of I need to find alternate means to heal, because being immunosuppressant and in prednisone for the rest of my life wasn't going to cut it. I was going to be in that room completely dark and alone for the rest of my life, however long it took my body to self-destruct. So that was no life at all. So my family thought I was actually choosing to die the day I threw all the medicines into the waste bin. I said, stop, no more. Because I couldn't see anybody. With immunosuppressants, you can't really see anybody because any virus or bacteria will kill you. So that was doomed to me. That was worse than death, because I'm a hard person. I'm a relationship person. So being alone in a room, in a darkened room for the rest of my life, what kind of life is that? So I threw everything out, except what really was keeping me alive. And I started with all the alternative methods of healing. And that's what eventually got me out of trouble and into a good state. It wasn't a short journey. It took 14 years of trial and error and trying everything out there. If you told me go and drink the blood of the snake, I would go and drink the blood of the snake. I was really desperate to get, and I live in Mexico, so we have a lot of home remedies. So the herbs and the animals and I even ended up with the shamans and anything you told me. But in that journey, I found many things that actually work and work wonders. Of course, we know of many, like acupuncture, that's been around forever and works really well. But I found a lot of others. And I had to treat this from every angle, because it was not just my body. It was my emotions and it was my mind. And also by that time, I was really depressed. It was also a spiritual thing. I had lost all hope. So I had to get the hope back and the purpose of being alive. I had to reconnect with, why do I want to do this effort? Why should I go through this? And that's the purpose of life. So I even had to connect all the way there.
So how did you do that?
Well, by connecting to hope and by trying to see the good in life.
But what was it that, okay, so you started off by being able to move a finger, and then that led you further to the desire to, okay, maybe I can heal. And you started to look at alternative therapies, which obviously a lot of them would have helped the physical. But what was it that wanted you to, what did you have to do to get the mental attitude?
Well, I'll tell you, it was actually a transcendental experience that I've never talked about. Maybe I'll put it in the book. I'm not sure yet. It was a normal Tuesday, and I went to sleep. And then I woke up, that state in between when you're not awake and not asleep. And then I started seeing all the information of the universe come at me. I know it sounds crazy, but it was first shapes, just shapes, circles and squares and things. And in my mind, I was traveling so fast, and I was aware that I was in my body, in my bed, paralyzed. I couldn't move, not because of the lupus. This was after, but because I was completely paralyzed. And I was sweating cold because it was a scary experience. I was going at the speed of light in my mind. And I started going through the layers of consciousness until I got to a place of complete and utter quiet and stillness and peace, from which I could see everything that was created from this is going to sound really conceited, but from this eye of God. I was that point of stillness from which everything is created. And that experience really brought me to the theme of consciousness and to the theme of being able to connect with the larger selves that we are. And when I could connect with that larger part of me, with the soul part or the spirit part, that was what gave me hope, because I realized then that this body is controlled by that part. And if I could be okay in that part, this would heal. And it did. I had to do a lot of things. It wasn't a spontaneous remission. Many people who go there actually say they have somebody like Anita Mojani that died and came back because she had that experience and came back and healed completely. For me, it wasn't such a short journey. And I think the purpose that I found there was that I needed to do the whole journey because I needed to find ways to help other people, which is what brings complete joy to my life. When somebody walks into my consulting room and they're all sad and they have all these troubles, and when I can transform that frown into a smile and they can see the wonderful, beautiful being that they are, that just changes everything. And that just puts a smile on my face. And that's the purpose I found in my life. And that's the purpose I found for the disease, for having the disease. I had to have this disease and heal myself to be able to guide others on their journeys. Yes. If I hadn't done it myself, how would I know how to do this?
And have the experience and to engage and give you the purpose. So that led you to write this beautiful book. I love the name, Befriending the Wolf. Of course, lupus is Latin for wolf, and you tell your story in a lot more detail in this book, don't you? Very, very emotional, and it is a really beautiful story. This book is available on Amazon.
It is.
It's available on Amazon, and you have a website for it as well, befriendingthewolf.com, which is absolutely beautiful. So you wrote the book.
I wrote the book because in the book
happened. What else has happened? So you had this purpose. So you wrote this beautiful book, which can help anybody with lupus or anybody with any autoimmune disease to start to understand your journey and how to transition. And then you've also developed some phenomenal treatments, and of course you have your clinic, which I know at the moment due to COVID is not around, even though we'll get on to all the other ways that people can help themselves at home as well. But so what else did you do other than write the book?
Well, I started this clinic with a friend. She also had an autoimmune disease and she also healed herself. And we sort of came together in many of the healing things. Like we were together in a master Reiki class and all these things we were studying because she's curious as I am. So what I did is everything that worked for me, I studied to apply on others. That's why it took so long, because I was studying everything. And I'm a bit of a bookworm, so I love to study things. So I studied all these methods and she did too. And we were talking about this and saying, this works. We have to bring this to the world. We really have to bring, and we spent 10 years talking about it. And finally, one day we had the opportunity to go into a clinic, a medical clinic that had all this space and that wanted to do something holistic. So we went in there and with what we had, with what we knew, and we started developing a method to diagnose people in their whole being, because we came to the same realization that this is systemic, doesn't just mean the whole body, it means the whole being of the person. So we got the whole diagnosis system, which is really interesting because we got two machines, one that tells us how the body works. It's called a quantum resonance machine, and it's now being used for a lot of things. You just hold on to a thing and it measures the electromagnetic signals from your body and lets you know how your organs are doing, if you're missing vitamins, how's the state of your body.
And then can you be specific enough with that machine to know which vitamins are missing, or does it just
which vitamins are missing?
Analyze an imbalance?
Yeah, it says you're missing vitamin K and your liver is greasy and your bones don't have enough calcium. It's
and
very
so without taking any blood tests or anything like that. And is this a machine that you said they hold on to it, or they sit in it like an MRI machine or a CT scanner?
It's a little rod and you hold on to the rod and it measures the electromagnetic signals from your body. Wow. And then it compares it to good or healthy people or healthy organs.
Right, so to a control in order to analyze what the differences may be.
It tells you a range. So your liver's here and the healthy liver goes from here to here. And you have so much calcium and that this is the range. And I like the range because when you start treating the person and you do the study again, you can see the actual improvement like you would in a blood test.
Yep.
It's surprisingly accurate when we have had people that have the blood test and the clinical studies and we do with it. It's very, very correlatable. So that's very interesting. And no puncture wounds and no blood and no horrible things.
No, and then you don't have to work, because when you prescribe to get a blood test done, you have to ask what it is you want to look for. Whereas, and you don't always find it. Typical things like when you do thyroid tests, okay, you might test the T3 and the T4 levels, But if you're not testing for the thyroid stimulating hormone, or you're not testing for the right thing, there might still be something wrong with your thyroid, but it's not found from the test, which is what a lot of times people don't understand. And so with this, it obviously you're not specifically looking for one particular thing, but it will flag up what might be going wrong. And then you could go into further tests if needs be.
Precisely, and that's exactly what happened with the lupus. For the lupus, you have to test for a very specific anti-nuclear antibody, and if you don't test for that, you have no idea. So you see, it's complicated.
It is. Okay, so you have this fantastic machine,
and then I have the Aura machine, and the Aura machine, I love the Aura machine because you put your hand there and it also reads your energy system, and it shows up with the whole chakras and with the whole aura. And it's amazing to see what's wrong with your body when you compare it with what's wrong with your energy, and it's completely correlatable. You can see the greasy liver and the solar plexus chakra diminished, for example. And that's where I can really tell a person, okay, this is emotional and physical now. This has manifested into your body, and we're going to attack this first and then this second. And what we did with all these techniques was to go in and try for the whole body. So we attack a little bit mental, a little bit emotional, a little bit physical, to be able to go that person and heal them in a kind of spherical way, which is why the clinic is called Bienestar 360, as in a sphere kind of way. Because if you don't heal the emotion at the same time as the body will flare up again.
Yeah, so you're not treating the ultimate cause.
Exactly.
And so traditional medicine traditional medicine may just, sometimes deal with the symptoms or suppress it, such as steroids. If you don't deal with the underlying cause, especially something like an autoimmune disorder, it's just going to come back again. The same as when we go on a diet. It's the same thing, right? We just yo-yo. So your idea is a very holistic approach.
Exactly.
Energy within the body in order to treat the physical manifestations. So what's the source? This is the chicken and the egg question. Is the source the physical that affects the energy, or does the energy affect the physical?
Well, that depends. That depends on the person. Because as you said a little while ago, you can have a trauma in your body. You can really have something traumatic happen to you. So that's physical. You got in an accident, or you had a virus. We're dealing with a pandemic right now, and that's really traumatic for your body. And then your emotions come into play, and then you get depressed, and like we're feeling right now in the quarantine, where you get all depressed and desperate and scared, and that fear continues to diminish the body. Or you can get the emotion, something traumatic emotionally. You get somebody dies in your family, or you get divorced, or there's something traumatic in your emotional life, and then it manifests in the body. So I don't think it's a one-way thing, but that we're all connected, and what affects one thing affects the other thing. So that's why we have to heal in this holistic manner. And what this pair of machines let me know is how much we need, where we need to start, where the cause lies, if it's physical, or if the physical is worse. Because if you don't attack a physical symptom that's really getting the person down, you will never be able to get them up emotionally, because they're in pain.
Yeah, and they just actually get
about pain. Trust me, you can't be upbeat and happy if you're really in pain. So it depends, and it depends on the person, which is why sometimes these things don't work for everybody. I don't know if you've met somebody that you recommend your beautiful acupuncturist to, and he's a genius, but they don't need acupuncture because this is emotional.
Now, how much of it can be an effect if they don't believe in it? So, for example, you refer your friend to this phenomenal acupuncturist who always get results, and they go along, but a little bit resentfully, because they're thinking, well, they'll give it a go because their friend told them, but they don't really believe it works. What effect is that going to have on their treatment outcome?
Well, I will tell you, it depends too. If what they need, that what their body needs, is that point in that meridian, it will heal. because your body has a wisdom of its own, which is why kinesiology works. I don't know if you've heard about this method, but it's muscle checking. And you can check the person's body for its knowledge, for its wisdom. So you don't go with the mind. The mind tells us a lot of stories. And actually you can see this with people that have had their corpus callosum cut. That one hemisphere of the brain and the other one are like completely different personalities. So your mind doesn't really know what's going on, but it will invent a story to justify your symptoms, even if it has no idea. So that's why I ask the body too. That's the third thing I do. After I do both machines and I know what's going on, then I ask your body, your inner wisdom, what do you need right now? Where do we need to start? And so I'm not inventing anything. I'm asking your body, because you are the expert in you. I'm not the expert in you. I'm the expert in me.
So this is a conversation you would then have with the patient?
Yes.
Where do you feel you need to start?
I would ask their body. I would muscle check. Do you need a Reiki session? No. Do you need a allergy session? Yes. Okay. So sometimes it's an intolerance to a substance or to a person.
How can you tell when you say you ask the body?
By muscle checking. For example, you can even do it yourself. And actually in my YouTube video, I teach people how to do this by themselves. And it's a pendulum. And you ask your body, is this the best for me right now? And the body says yes or no. And I can do it with the arm. You can do it with the leg. Any muscle will respond. And the muscles are related to the unconscious mind, to the right hemisphere of the brain, which is the creative part. And that one's the one that knows what's going on. But that one doesn't use language. It uses symbols, which is why hypnosis is so great for healing, because you access the wisdom of the right brain, of the unconscious mind, to go in there and give it suggestions. That's why you get suggested in hypnotherapy.
Hypnotherapy, yeah, post-hypnotic suggestions, absolutely. So how can we talk to the left side of the brain?
The left side of the brain talks. We're doing it right now. That's the logical one. And it loves language, and it loves to go on and invent all these beautiful stories about why you're feeling this way. The other one is the one that actually knows what's going on. So that's why we do the muscle checking, because that's the way we can talk to the right side of the brain, through muscle checking. And it's a yes or no answer. So you ask it yes or no questions. Like, is this the best therapy for me right now? Or is this the real cause of the problem? Maybe your left side of the brain is saying, of course, this is happening because my brother was horrible to me during childhood. And your body says, nope, that's not it. And you have to look for the cause. Actually, the best therapy I use is from she's an English teacher. Her name is Chloe Wordsworth, and it's called resonance repatterning. And that's exactly what it does. It asks the body, what's the cause? And it's a yes or no answer until you get to the cause. And then what it needs to change the resonance with that cause, because your body remembers and it stays in resonance like a radio. You get tuned into a station, and then you stay on that station until somebody changes the dial. And that's what resonance repatterning does. It changes the dial and it puts you in another station, listening to different music. So that's so interesting. And it's with the body. The body knows, you're the expert in you. But we don't know.
That because you can sit there on a counselor's chair or a therapist's chair trying to work out why you are the way you are, and why you behave the way you are, and why this has happened to you, and how you can get and as a coach I go beyond therapy. So we go to the point of, okay, we've sussed out the why, but let's actually work out what to do about it. But from what you're saying as well, it's also, you don't even need to do that. You just you don't need to sit here trying to suss it out. The body will tell you. It's amazing.
It will. And that's why it works so fast, because you can go to the actual cause in one session, because you don't need to go through the whole mental apparatus and going through all the things that are similar, which is very useful too. And if you're a talker and if you enjoy that, that works too. But it takes a long time
So
usually to get.
are you able to share any examples of people that you've treated based on those three diagnostic tools?
Well, I'm the living example that it works. And so is my friend, and I have permission from her to talk about her. So she had rheumatoid arthritis, you know, all her joints. She couldn't put her arm up, she couldn't move. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was very uncomfortable. She couldn't get out of bed either.
Yeah, and rheumatoid arthritis is incredibly crippling. So when you get a flare-up, obviously you're in immense chronic pain and your joints swell up, but what happens is you can end up with permanent disabilities. And, you know, the people get things like swan neck, their fingers get, you know, permanently shriveled up like this. Exactly. You lose your dexterity. You can lose your ability to walk. Yeah, absolutely. So you lose your strength, but also permanent deformities over time, right? And immense pain.
Well, for her, it was completely emotional. And she was going through a rough spot in her marriage, and she was having a lot of trouble with at home, and that triggered the rheumatoid arthritis episode. And when we got to the cause, to the emotional cause, that it was a horrible separation anxiety, but of course the marriage triggered it, but the actual experience was when she was born and her mother had preeclampsia, so she went into a coma, and she was taken out of the mother's womb via a C-section, and she was never in contact with her mother for a month. And that gave her horrible anxiety separation. So anything that triggered the anxiety separation triggered the joints, and the joints are movement. So there's a whole symbolic connotation to the joints. So she didn't want to move at all to see if that way she wouldn't be abandoned again. So that's the mental.
Wow.
The belief that if I don't move, if nobody sees me, then maybe they won't abandon me. There's the emotion of the anxiety of being separated from the mother. And of course, the physical. All the joints were swelling up. They were responding to her need to be in need. So of course, the husband couldn't leave because she couldn't move. And they had 3 small kids. So she was keeping the husband there by being unable to move. So it was actually working. And that's something else that's really important. We have to look for the benefit that the illness is giving us. If you don't resolve that emotional issue, which the illness is solving for you, then you will never get rid of the illness because it works. And I have a lot of people that do that.
And sometimes it's almost becoming ill to force us to slow down, right? To force us
to slow down.
And yourself, you're a superwoman. As have I been, and suffered other types of illnesses, but yes, it's the body forcing itself. Hang on a minute, you can't actually do it all, and you do need to slow down. And so sometimes by becoming ill, it forces us to do that.
It does, and it also forces the emotional issues. For example, I have an older woman, and she doesn't have a good relationship with her children. So every time the children get fed up with her, she gets sick and ends up in the hospital. And she has had about, 15, 17 operations on her back, on her thighs, on her hip bone. And it's just because she doesn't like to be alone, but she hates to say, I'm sorry. So what she does in order to get the kids back is she gets sick and ends up in the hospital. And there's an emotional issue there.
I was going to say, because it isn't even a manipulation. You know, this isn't a conscious manipulation of I will get attention, but her body and mind have programmed themselves for this to happen, so that
because it works.
So tell us, but back to your friend. So obviously she had this rheumatoid arthritis. You sussed out what the problem was, and is she still married?
No, she got the divorce.
Okay.
But she has a very good relationship with the ex-husband. So
managed to work her way through that. And physically, any permanent manifestations?
Fine. Actually, I saw her the other day, and she's had lost a lot of weight, and she's looking great. And during the pandemic, they actually were living together because they have 3 kids. So she sort of moved back in because she was over in Europe when it started. So she had to come back and move back in with him. And they had a grand old time because they're very good friends. They got married for a reason, and they've refound that reason, that it was that they get along really well. So they don't want to be married anymore, but they have a good relationship. And that's very good for the kids too.
Of course, absolutely. So now she's, and we should say again with rheumatoid arthritis, again, like with you, the drugs that you are put on can be really horrific to try to control it at times, and even that doesn't work. So yeah, but she's drug free, which is phenomenal.
As am I, yes. I haven't had a drug for lupus in such a long time. I think I'm going on 5 years now.
Wow, that's
this
beautiful.
was almost 19 years ago. This was 2001.
Yeah. So if we carry on with your story, so you healed yourself, you wrote a book, help people heal themselves. You went into partnership with your friend who had been through a similar situation. You researched and read left, right, and center to determine the best way forward. You've set up a clinic with a really innovative kind of tripod of analysis and diagnostics. And then what does the treatment involve? Obviously, I know it's different for different people, but typically some examples of what treatment might involve for people.
Well, we use a lot of acupuncture. We use Reiki. I use a lot of resonance repatterning. That's my core idea. We use another technique. That one I don't do, she does. It's called spiritual response technique, and that deals with the spiritual part and with the masters and with all the Akashic records and the karma and I do hypnosis, I do past life regressions, I do life between life regressions. That's such a great trip. I do quantum consciousness to get into the spiritual part of the person so they can see the magnificent being that they are. We also do allergy treatments. And in the physical body, basically it's acupuncture, some rehabilitation. If you have a real pain in your body, you need to rehabilitate that muscle. It's just the way it's done. And the allergies, because there's a lot of things that are intolerances. So we have to get rid of the allergies. And then on the emotional, it's the resonance repatterning and the hypnosis. That works so well. It's incredible to see. And then the spiritual part, it's the regressions, basically, and the spiritual response technique.
And are you able to do any of this online?
I'm able to do all of it online. Oh, and also magnetism, also biomagnetism for the body, because biomagnetism helps with virus and bacteria. And we're in a pandemic right now. So unfortunately that works best on the body, but it can also be done at a distance, because as you know, and many people are coming to realize, energy doesn't have a physical limit. So I can work on your energy from here, from anywhere. And all these techniques have that energetic value to them. So I work with people in Australia. I work with people in Holland. I work with people all over the world, because you don't need the actual body there. Yep. For the allergy, it's more difficult because you actually have to be in relationship in holding the substance. But I can do it online. I can tell you, go and grab something that has gluten in it and we'll treat the gluten.
Mm-hmm. So am I hearing you correctly that you can get people past the allergy? It's not just about identifying that they're allergic, but you can get rid of the allergy.
The allergy has a very, very great emotional component. So your body learns. Imagine when you were a little girl and you put your hand in the fire for the first time. You learned that is very hot and it burns, right? Well, the next time you see fire, you have that learning in you and you will not put your hand in the fire again, right? Well, your body learns the same way. And there are very useful learnings like fire burns, but there are other learnings like, I'll give you an example. I have eggs for breakfast this morning, and then I get a really bad news. Something happened to somebody and they were in a car crash, and I get a horrible fright. And my body doesn't see the emotion, what I was talking about in the lupus. It can't see the emotional thing that somebody was in a car crash. So it will identify the fright with the eggs. And the next time I have eggs, my body will go into, oh no, we're going to get hurt again. So it will reject the eggs and you will become allergic to the eggs.
So it's an incorrect association. In other words, it's
that's how the body
itself. So your job is to dissociate.
Precisely. So when that learning is not there anymore, that the eggs and the car crash had nothing to do with each other, then you can get past the egg allergy. Of course, I would never recommend for a person to go for a really bad and even lethal allergies. So I would never recommend that person to go back and eat the strawberries or the whatever's causing the allergy.
Or take the penicillin.
Yeah, but there are very mild allergies too, that you just eat the eggs and then feel a little queasy or feel a little under the weather or just...
So what would your explanation be for the fact that we have so much more gluten intolerance in the world nowadays than, say, 10 years ago?
Well, that's actually a three-way explanation. One, we have more stress and we eat a lot of gluten. And two, the wheat has been...
Why is eating a lot of gluten going to cause the intolerance? Let's take them one step at a time.
Because you're going to have gluten in your system when something happens. Okay. When that stress is there, you're going to have it in your system. So your body is going to start correlating. Okay, and
so
also,
the greatest chance of association because we're eating more gluten when we're stressed. Okay, that's number one. Number two?
It's been genetically altered to have bigger crops. Mm-hmm. So that genetic information that's not really wheat is affected because your body doesn't know what to do that. I even heard a story, I don't know if it's true, but that some people were genetically altering wheat with cockroach genes to make it really strong. So your body doesn't know if it's digesting wheat or cockroach. So
okay. Thanks for that. Good incentive to go invincible, so yeah. Okay. So the genetic modification, then the body doesn't like it. And the third one?
And the third one is emotional. It's emotional because we have heard so many horrible things about gluten that now we have a belief that gluten is bad for us. We've been told that it gets you fat. We've been told that it gets you allergies. We've been told that it's so bad for you. There's all these...
It becomes a limiting belief, yes? It becomes a limiting belief. And of course, if we're going to eat something that we believe is going to be bad for us or that we believe is going to make us fat or going to make us ill, if it's so programmed in our mind, it will, absolutely. It's funny, I write about it. I write something about that in my book when I think I talk about menopause, actually. So I know magnetic resonance is brilliant for that too, actually, isn't it? And I think I say, because we're so programmed to believe that we're going to put on weight, or when we're menopausal, but how much of it is it really altering our behavior? How much are we really putting on weight, or how much are we changing our eating habits?
And how much is now, and you're telling your body, now we have to get fat because we're menopausal. And your body says, okay, if that's what you want, here we go.
Yes, exactly. The power of the mind. It's phenomenal. So we've got a little bit more time. I really want you to tell us about this system you've also developed about the 4 levels of consciousness. So tell us how that came about and tell us a little bit about it.
Well, that came about through being a therapist and through all these people that I helped. What I came to realize was that the basic part you need to do for yourself is to know yourself. This is not a new concept. This has been going on since we were conscious that we were conscious. Mm-hmm. But the actual levels of consciousness, they have been debated for a long time. Actually, I'm writing that part in the book right now of all the debate of consciousness. We don't really know what consciousness is today, and nobody knows where it resides. Neuroscientists say it's in the brain. Mystics say it's in the soul, but we don't really know. But what we do know is that we have these experiences like the one I was talking to you about. So I divided the consciousness levels like a Russian doll. You remember those Russian dolls? Mm-hmm. So the body and this consciousness, the waking consciousness, the one that's talking to you and knows that you are Rana and I am Millie, that's the first doll, the little one. And it's body conscious, and it's your ego, and it's your me, mine, I sort of thing. And it has to do with your needs and with your survival, and it's going to look after you. And many mystics say that the ego has to die. I don't think the ego has to die. The ego is a very important part to navigate the world, because it's also the mind and the ideas. The mind tells you how to get things done. So it's very important to have that very well established. That's where your well-being is. That's where your health is, where your relationships lie, where you make every conscious choice every day in your life. First level of consciousness. But then the next doll out, and I think that's where the shift that's going on right now is happening, because all this situation is obviously a shift in consciousness and obviously a cleansing and a great big change. And that change, I think, is going from this level of consciousness, I, me, mine, into the second one, which is we. Here, we don't speak about myself and my needs. We speak about you and the consequences that my choices have, not only on you, but on everybody, generations to come, and the whole planet. I call that level the empathic consciousness, in which we put every decision through this filter of how will this affect everybody else. And if you realize, that's exactly what COVID's doing. They're telling you wear the mask, not because you will get infected, but because of the people you can infect. So it's making us think of the other. Also, global warming, it's making us think that our choices, our personal choices every day in our lives, are affecting the whole planet, and therefore the climate, and therefore our lives.
And our future generations.
Future generations and every other species in the world. I was listening to the news yesterday in which they're having problems because fish are not reproducing in the North Seas anymore because it's too warm for them. So if the fish don't reproduce, we don't get fishing, we don't get food. It's going to affect us. And that change of paradigm in our heads, in our whole being, is that shift to the next level of consciousness, to the next doll, to the, hey, I'm not in this alone. We're in this together. And that's what we're doing right now. We have to like hold hands and be team Earth, be team humanity, and get out of this together. We got in this together, so we now have to get out of it together. And it's also there that the new paradigm is coming to be, this new reality. And every new reality has to do with us, because the reality we were living before, we created or we conformed to. If we were not the masterminds of it, we certainly conformed to it. So this new reality we're going to have to come up with together. Like, what do we want to rescue from the past? And what do we need to change in order to make our lives in this planet sustainable? So that's the shift that's going on now, but that's just the second doll. Okay. And it's very important.
Number 3?
Well, we're going up to humanity, but for me, there's another 2 dolls. So it's 4 levels. The next level up is what all mystics call a unifying experience, the experience of the one. So I call it the level of consciousness 3 is one consciousness, where it's not only you and me together, but that we are one. We are the same, and energy is the same, and we're all made up of the same stuff. And that's where like the butterfly effects comes in, when everything I do affects everything, because we are all connected, because we are all one.
This is a really difficult concept for people to grasp, because I know Donald Walsh talks about it a lot in his conversations with God as well, and this idea that we are all one, and a lot of people will be like, oh, what do you mean? It's all a load of nonsense. So how can you make that a bit more practical for people to try to understand it a bit more?
Very easy. Take your hand. So that's Millie, that's Rana, okay? And we're talking, hey, hi, how are you? But we are all part of
from one source.
So we are one, okay? In here, we are part of a system of fingers, and everything this finger does will affect the other fingers, okay? So that's the second level of consciousness, where I'm not alone, but we are 5 fingers. Mm-hmm. And then this is the one consciousness. We are one hand, and everything that happens here happens to the whole hand. That's the next level.
So it's not, when we say we're all one, it's not that we're all the same.
No.
It's that we are all...
Rana, this is to Millie, but we are one hand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So after that level of consciousness, we are the actual source. So we are not only a hand, but we are connected to the whole universe. If you think of your body as a whole universe, that's exactly what we are. And everything that this little finger does and does to this other little finger will affect the hand and will affect the whole source. And at the end of the day, it's that experience I was talking to you about. That's the fourth level of consciousness. That's the source consciousness. That's where you completely dissolve into the mind of God, into complete universal stillness, the biggest consciousness, beyond consciousness. I know it sounds silly, but it's the consciousness, beyond duality, beyond you and me, beyond everything.
So a little bit like your transcendental experience at that point.
Exactly. But that's experience, and I'm researching that for the book right now. Everybody says you can't force that one. You can't really do anything to get there. That just happens if it happens. You can be ready for it, and that's what people do in meditation and all these spiritual practices. You can be ready for it, but you can't really force that one.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a very similar one. I remember I was lecturing in Seville, just in my hotel room that morning, doing a Rahani healing on myself. And Rahani healing, again, is fifth dimensional healing. So you're channeling in from the angel. Very similar to you. I felt like I was paralyzed. I couldn't move my arms, my legs, even though, of course, I could have. But I felt like I couldn't, and it was just like a massive shaking, like I was being traveled and trajected into I don't know where, and then opened up in something that was almost like a spaceship. It was all very colorful, and there were these kinds of people, but I couldn't quite make it out. And and then I think, my conscious came in to try and say, well, what is the message? And I missed it, but it really shook me up.
It does shake you up, but you can't plan for that one. You would.
It's happened, and it hasn't happened again. Even though I've invited it, I'm like, okay, I'm ready now. Give it back. I'll try and make more sense of it.
And you can't really force that one. But you can go up to level 3 with all these techniques.
So where does meditation take you?
Meditation takes you to calm the mind so you can be receptive and open to the other levels of consciousness. That's what it basically does. It just.
What do you do? What do you do when you're able to channel? When you're able to talk to spirit, or you're able to channel, or you're able to tap into your higher self or your higher coach? When you can get those downloads, when you tap into your clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvoyance, whatever it happens to be. What level are you at then?
I think it's level 3.
Yeah.
I think information is coming down from level 3 because there we know we are one, so we are accessing what physics calls the field of information, in which all information lies. So if you tap into that field, actually there's also the term morphic fields, and all knowledge rests there. Even Jung called it the archetypal and the collective unconscious. You can tap into that information and channel from there. That's where all the guides are, and the angels and the spiritual beings reside in level 3.
And the masters and the Akashic records. And so am I hearing you correctly that almost there's perhaps a gateway between consciousness and higher consciousness or subconsciousness, between level 2 and level 3, where we're perhaps 3-dimensional on this plane still? At level 2, where we're obviously empathetic, we're looking after each other, we're recognizing that there's a ripple effect with anything we do affects somebody else, versus level 3, which it's still about other people, but it also becomes about our engaging in our higher connection. That's what I'm hearing you say.
And you can connect, for example, hypnosis with the regressions, especially life between life regressions. You get to meet yourself, your soul self, and your soul family, and everything that's going on in the spirit world. So that's where you really realize the magnificent being that you are and that we all are. Because at that level, we are all just beautiful light. Everybody is. And
so where would the benefit be if you were, we were talking to somebody and we were talking about these 4 levels of consciousness, and of course I know you and I still have a common theme to raise the consciousness of the planet, one individual at a time. Let's work on it. Let's bring the energy level up. Yes, be free, be fun, be fearless is exactly part of that. But if I said to someone, I want to raise your consciousness up to level 3, someone will say, well, why? What benefit? What's in it for me?
Well, if they're asking that question, they're probably still in level 1, and going to level 3 is a little too much for them right now. But going to level 2, that's a very practical thing to do, because all our lives depend on us all going to level 2 and actually being able to think about others. And when you're in level 2, then you want to go to level 3.
Okay.
Level 3 is this unifying force, and I think we all have that calling, because our 4th doll source is calling us back. So we all have that somewhere in our mind, somewhere in our system, because that's what we've been looking for in spirituality all through history. We've been wanting this union with other things. So I think we all have it in there. But if you're at the what's in it for me stage, you're still very much level 1. And first we have to get you to level 2. Just please don't use so much gasoline and don't throw plastic all over the place. That's a very important step for you. And
unfortunately, actually, with COVID, it has actually gotten a hell of a lot worse again, because everything.
I know.
So what I'm hearing you say is that as we raise that level of consciousness, we feel more purposeful.
We do, and we start. I think somebody just came into scene. Okay. Yes, we feel more because we know the connection. We can see the connection. So that connection gives us purpose. And purpose usually has to do with our values and with other people. The true core values that you own have to do with others, and they usually have to do with service, which is exactly what we were talking about. Here we are trying to raise consciousness. Yay! And that gives a lot of purpose to life. So going from level 1 to level 2 gives you that extra purpose of being able to do things for the rest of humanity. Because being in level 1, being egotistical, which is the very basic level 1, is very lonely. You feel very alone. Loneliness comes from being completely in that frame of mind, because you have no connection to anyone else.
Yeah. So it will ultimately give you more joy, more fulfillment, more peace, more purpose, more opportunity,
and a hell of a lot more happiness.
And ultimately by doing that, you can manifest, and you get into the state of creativity where you can create more in your life, whatever that happens to be.
Let me just talk a little bit about that, because that's so exciting. In the 4 levels, of course, we have free will. But the level of choice I have in first level of consciousness is very limited. I can't do anything for my circumstances. I can't really co-create my life. I can choose what I'm going to have for breakfast, but that's about it. I'm joking here, but I can choose my spouse, but it's a very limited kind of choice, because it's just this choice. But in the second level, we get to choose for all of us. We get to choose our common reality. We have so much more freedom of choice. And the higher you go in consciousness, the freer you get. For example, if you go to level 4, as you remember your experience, I remember mine, there is creation source. So if you go there, you can co-create everything. You are the source. And in level 1. Level 3, level 1, and we can create from the field of information. You can put them and that's where for example, the secret works. You remember this book, The Secret. You put your intention into the field, and the field will reflect that right back to you. Because at the end of the day, what creation is, it's a big mirror in which you are reflecting what you need in the world.
Energetically.
Yeah, what your soul needs to have happen to it in order to learn something, you reflect into your world, and that's whatever's going on in your life, that's what I always tell my clients, to bring this into a little bit more practical sense, because these are very elevated concepts. I just tell them, look at your life. What's going on in your life? Oh, I have conflict. Okay. Then you need to resolve internal conflict. And as long as the life is reflecting conflicts to you, you have not resolved your inner conflict.
Exactly.
It's still being reflected back at you.
We are running out of time. We are running out until we run out of time. I know you and I could just talk for hours, which we will. We will offline again in a minute. So, but listen, I want people to be able to get hold of you, Millie. So the best website for you, where they can find so much of this information and links to your clinic and all the treatments that you do and how to get hold of you, because obviously you still do stuff online, and also information about your book and your upcoming book is all on your website, right? Which is www.milliediericx.com. So that's MILLYDIERICX.com. And you have created a hell of a lot of videos, again, about these therapies and things that people can do and try as well on your YouTube channel. And that is Consciousness and Evolution, the symbol for and, Consciousness and Evolution, by Dr. Diericx, again spelled D-I-E-R-C-X. Yes?
I-C-X,
yes. Thank you so much, Millie. Thank you for all of your wisdom and your insights and your stories and your empowerment for people to truly heal themselves. It's been absolutely fantastic. So anyone want more information, please do get hold of Millie. She, as you've gathered, we could just talk here for hours about other ways that she could help you. But that's it for now. Thanks, Millie.
Thank you, Rana. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. So as always, just be free, be fun, be fearless. I am Dr. Rana Al-Falaki, Light Changes Coaching. Take care. Bye-bye.